Discover the incredible truth. 3 surprising reasons my family abandoned my wedding day. Exposed? Jessica felt the weight of her wedding dress as if it were 1,000,000 bricks. Excitement and dread battled within her as the sun dipped in the Iowa sky, casting shadows over the empty hall. She should have been buzzing with joy, counting down the final minutes to her fairy tale wedding. Instead, her mind raced with unsettling questions. Why had her mother grown distant, retreating into her own world? Why wouldn't her brother engage in even the simplest of conversations? Why was her father suddenly an expert at avoiding eye contact? The ache of confusion gnawed at her, leaving her with a sense of impending crisis. Just days before, she had stumbled onto an old family album while searching for something to share with her getting-ready crew. The faded photographs revealed a side of her mother she'd never seen, an old man that seemed so out of place, with a stern look and a family that mirrored hers. It felt heavy, like a storm was brewing inside her. What secret was buried in their past? Could it be related to her wedding day? She glanced at the clock, tension tightening within her. The minutes ticked by slowly, amplifying the nervous moisture in the air. She was to marry Jake, the love of her life, but a shadow loomed over her. Just then Anna called, delivering the news that had thrown another wrench into her carefully planned day. Anna wouldn't be by her side as maid of honor. Jessica's heart twisted painfully, the disappointment echoing in the hollow space of her dreams. This moment was not just a fleeting experience. It had morphed into something complicated and deeply rooted. Every undisclosed truth, every whisper of fear threatened to shatter everything she built. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As she stood in front of the mirror, the wedding dress felt like a cage, its lace choking the last pinpricks of air. Each bead of sweat mirrored the confusion swirling in her mind. Did she really want to step into this new chapter without uncovering the past that clung to her family like an unwelcome shadow? The air thickened with unspoken words. She could almost hear them whispering secrets behind her back, just out of reach. Jessica knew she was walking into a minefield of unresolved emotions, her heart intuitively pulling her toward uncovering the truth that had secluded her family for years. Moments before she was to grace the aisle, her mother's voice called her back. The truth spilled out like a dam, breaking years of bitterness, disguised grief over a family member lost through strife that echoed through time. Jessica's breath caught, everything inside her lurching. She stood in a moment suspended between ambition and obligation, knowing she could either confront the fissures in her family today or ignore them, risking the very foundation of her marriage. Torn, she clutched her bouquet, eyes locked on the promising path ahead that felt so precarious. Would she step forward, ready to say "I do," or linger in a past refusing to be buried? The air crackled with uncertainty. The day she longed for, hanging by the thread of truth yet untold. The sound of soft music wafted from the main hall, albeit muffled, as Jessica stood at the threshold of an emotional tempest. Her mother's words were echoing in her mind like an intruder scrambling through her thoughts, squeezing the optimism right out of her heart. The truth of their unresolved history pressed down on her, making it almost unbearable to breathe. With each rhythmic beat, the enormity of the decision she faced intensified. She glanced at her reflection more closely. The person in the mirror looked different than the excited bride she'd envisioned. This version of Jessica wore a heavy cloud of doubt, her eyes revealing not just beauty, but also a depth that came from the weight of knowledge. She was no longer simply a bride, she was a woman standing at a crossroads, grappling with both the joy of love and the burden of family legacies. Could she truly say "I do" while so much remained unaddressed? Was she ready to leap into a future that felt shrouded in the secrecy of her family's past? For so long, she had tried to navigate her path, ignoring the shadows at her back. But now, the shadows were insisting on being acknowledged. With a sudden flash of determination, she glanced back at the hall where everyone awaited her. Each face, her father, her mother, and her brother, held pieces of the puzzle that had long eluded her grasp. They didn't just represent a familial bond. They represented the heritage of both love and pain, The thought made her heart race, reviving a nascent courage she hadn't realized lay dormant within her. As she stepped away from the mirror, Jessica directed her thoughts toward Jake. He was optimistic, loyal, everything she could ever want, yet he had no idea of the familial strands she was about to unravel. Could she build a life with him while leaving the past unexamined? Each glance at the polished tiles felt like stepping deeper into a moral landmine. She couldn't ignore the very foundation upon which they were about to build their lives. Then, a notion struck her, a stark realization that she'd built parts of herself on the very grounds of these unresolved issues. It might be time to confront the ghosts of her past, not just as an obligation but also as a path to healing. The decision loomed, both daunting and liberating. Jessica inhaled deeply, summoning what felt like a new perspective, ready to embrace whatever truth awaited her. Moments later, she found herself navigating back to her family, each step deliberate and resolute. She realized she needed to address the looming specter of family history before moving forward with a life partner. The impending confrontation would not merely unveil family secrets. It would reshape her identity and perhaps guide her into a deeper marriage. As she rounded the corner, her gaze locked onto her mother's, where vulnerability and anxiety resided. "We need to talk," she said firmly, her voice steady despite the tremor of myriad emotions buzzing beneath the surface. The air shifted around them, crackling with tension and possibility. The chorus of the wedding guests settled into a murmur, curiosity peeking at the unfolding drama. Even as her heart raced, Jessica felt a new lightness in speaking her truth. She was no longer just a bride waiting to walk down the aisle. She had ignited a spark of courage that might light the way for her future. But at what cost? The rift awaited, ready to either shatter bonds or build bridges. What lay ahead could reshape not only her marriage but also her understanding of family. As they stood on the cusp of confronting the past, Jessica wondered if she was truly prepared for what might emerge from the depths of generational hurt. Turning to her family, she steeled herself. "It's time for us to face the truth together." In that moment, Jessica could feel that the time had come for everything to change. The weight of her past bore down on her certainty, propelling her toward the unknown. Would the truth heal or divide them? Jessica's words hung heavy in the air, each syllable a deliberate choice aimed at shattering the silence that had cocooned her family for too long. She suddenly felt as if she stood in the midst of a storm, the gusts of unspoken grievances swirling around her. Her mother's expression shifted, a flash of surprise giving way to an unsettling mixture of anxiety and apprehension. The glimmer of her mother's once invincible composure now cracked, revealing vulnerability that had been buried beneath years of facades. "You don't understand what you're asking for, Jess," her mother stammered, the tremor in her voice indicating that the past was not as buried as they had hoped. "Some things are better left unsaid." Jessica felt her chest tighten with a surge of defiance. For years she had honored the evasive dance of family loyalty, suppressing her need for answers in the name of peace. But the time for compliance had expired. The threshold she stood upon demanded confrontation. "Maybe that's true. But I refuse to be dragged into a future built on silence. If we don't confront this now, what's left for me?" Her father's gaze shifted between them, a silent mediator caught off guard by the sudden upheaval. This was not merely about wedding vows anymore. It was about unearthing the tangled roots that held them all hostage to their past. Jessica turned to him, hoping for support but bracing for resistance. "Dad, you must see this too. The secrets have been festering for so long. It's time we address them openly. I need your help." Her father's expression softened, revealing the wisdom of a man who understood the burden of family lineage, but was perhaps too conditioned to bear it himself. There it was, an unvoiced acknowledgement of her challenge, a glimmer of recognition that suggested he, too, had been silently wrestling with the weight of their shared history. "I just wanted you to have a beautiful day, Jess," he finally replied, his voice low and laden with regret, revealing a layer of paternal disappointment. Jessica's heart sank at the realization that her upbringing had been not merely a facade, but an artifact of fear. "The beauty of this day won't matter if I step into a future blind to our reality," she urged. Moreover, the urgency of the moment ignited a resolute flame within her. She sought to reclaim not only her wedding day but also her sense of identity, burning away the stifling fog of secrecy. "Say it, Mom. Whatever it is you're holding on to, let it go. I'm asking you for the truth, not just for me but for us all, she implored. The gravity of her plea invoked a tangible silence, thick with anticipation. At last, her mother broke eye contact, staring downward as if the ground might open and swallow her. It's not so easy to talk about, Jess. Your father and I. We made choices. Choices that weren't just ours to make. Jessica's heart raced, the anticipation gripping her as the implications of her mother's words settled into an uneasy stillness. This admission tested the very foundations of everything she thought she knew. You can't tell me to marry a man without knowing if you can be honest with yourself, Jessica pressed, feeling an unexpected wave of assertiveness course through her veins. If there were secrets lurking between them, she would bring them into the light. As their eyes locked, Jessica saw the interplay of fear and revelation. She had stepped beyond the simple role of an anxious bride and had become an agent of change in her family. Just then, a thought struck her, a possibility swirling within the tension in the room. What if this moment, fraught with uncertainty and dread, was the very opportunity for personal growth they so desperately needed? What if confronting their family legacy could not only reshape her wedding but rejuvenate their relationships? In that charged atmosphere, she vowed to herself that she wouldn't back down. She wanted to forge a future that acknowledged the past, rather than succumb to its pull. What would become of her relationships, her marriage, if she succeeded? The air shifted once again as her heart thudded, each beat triggering a charged moment pregnant with potential. The unveiling of the truth hovered just out of reach, yet vibrant with the hope of understanding and healing. What exactly happened that day, Mom? What decisions led us here? Jessica's voice wavered slightly, but the conviction remained. It felt as if the question unraveled something critical, something she did not yet fully grasp, but that was crucial for her personal reclamation. With her mother's hesitant gaze, Jessica braced for the responses that might either shroud her in more confusion or ultimately liberate them all. Would the truth uncover the possibility of rebuilt connections, or shatter the already fragile fabric of their family? The tension held them all suspended on the edge of an impending revelation, but one single truth might change everything. Jessica's heart raced as her mother's gaze flickered to the floor, the weight of unspoken truths pressing heavily in the air. Every moment stretched taut, fraught with the tension of possibility and dread. What decisions could have spun their lives into this uncertainty? The silence seemed to pulse, a living entity waiting to be broken. Mom, please, she insisted, her voice a dagger cutting through the unbearable stillness. Whatever it is, it's better out in the open. I need to know. We all do. Her mother's shoulders tensed as if bracing against an impending storm. You think the truth will set you free, huh? What if it doesn't? What if it leads to something more painful? Jessica's frustration surged. What could possibly hurt more than the suffocation of silence? I want to live a life dictated by your past choices. Not anymore. The words were raw and electric, a declaration of her newfound resolve. In that moment, a flicker of something sparked in her mother's eyes. Was it fear or recognition? Jessica couldn't tell, but she sensed a shift. Your father and I didn't just choose to hide things for our sake. We thought we were protecting you, her mother murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. But some choices, they haunt us forever. Jessica felt an overwhelming mix of empathy and exasperation. Protection? Wasn't this suffocating secrecy the true haunting specter? The choice to bury the truth had marred their connections for years, turning them into marionettes bound by strings of denial. Setting aside the truth for the sake of peace only breeds resentment, Jessica challenged, her tone of fierce conviction. You can't protect me from hurt by hiding from it. I need to know it all, every detail. Her father, heavy with contemplation, finally broke his silence. There are things that happened before you were born, Jess. Things that your mother and I swore to keep buried. Secrets that made us who we are today. The gravity of his admission wrapped around her, tightening its grip. Then we need to face them together. Not just as individuals but as a family. We can't keep pretending anymore. The collective weight of that truth had settled in her. The unacknowledged past held the key to their future. This wasn't just about her wedding. It was about forging a path toward openness, acceptance, and healing. Her mother drew a breath, steadying herself as if preparing to reveal a hidden treasure. There was a tragedy, a fire, and it set off a chain reaction of events, choices that led us here. We thought we could shield you from the pain of knowing everything. The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Jessica's mind raced. She could feel the flicker of hope tangled with a profound sadness. The revelation could either light the way forward or ignite chaos. Suddenly, the world felt impossibly large and so very small all at once, crammed with questions that seemed poised to unearth buried emotions. I have to know all of it, she said, desperation mingling with determination. Not just the pretty outlines wrapped in comfort, but the raw core that lies beneath. Her mother's face contorted with conflicting emotions as she wrestled with her decision. This wasn't about discovering details. It was about allowing vulnerability to penetrate years of apathy. With a solemn nod, her mother began to retell their family's harrowing past. Jessica listened intently, prepared to absorb every jagged piece of history, no matter how unsettling. The revelations would come as an arduous journey, but she knew they were crucial steps toward her liberation from inherited fears. As she absorbed the weight of their shared pain, an openness began to weave its way through her heart. She was ready to face the anguish that had shackled them. Yet, just as the tumultuous narrative unfolded, Jessica felt another wave crashing upon her, a chilling realization. The more she learned, the more profound the implications for her future would be. Could understanding their past truly liberate her? Or would it shroud her in deeper uncertainty? And what role would she play in transforming their legacy? Each word hung in the air with a promise and a threat, leaving her standing at the precipice of an unknown future tinged with both hope and trepidation. What would she choose as her next step in this treacherous journey toward understanding? As silence settled in the aftermath of confession, the room felt transformed, yet fraught with the potential for deeper connections or dire rifts. The time for revelations was ripe, but Jessica could sense that the most critical battles lay ahead. How would she wield the truth, and could it ultimately redefine who she was meant to be? The stakes had never been higher, and as the moment teetered on the edge of collapse or healing, Jessica knew she was on the verge of a defining transformation. What would she discover about her own identity in the wake of these truths? Would she have the courage to confront them, or would she falter at the threshold of her own reckoning? Jessica felt the air grow thicker, a veil of tension enshrouding her as her mother's words began to draw a vivid picture of their family's past. The detail flooded in, each sentence a brushstroke chronicling the pain, anger, and fear they had long buried. She had expected an outline, a simple recounting of events that led to their carefully constructed silence. Instead, the narrative twisted and turned, revealing a labyrinth of betrayals and unhealed wounds that tethered her to a history she was desperate to escape. As her mother recounted the aftermath of the fire, Jessica pictured the chaos, the screams, the smoke, the visceral loss. Each name mentioned, each loss recalled, felt like a hammer to the chest. The truth was sprawling and uncomfortable, pulling threads that connected her to a family she had only thought she knew. Her mother's voice wavered. "It was that day that changed everything for us. Your father and I thought we were protecting you from a burden too heavy to bear. But we were wrong. We carried the weight ourselves, and it grew heavier with every secret kept." Jessica could feel the walls around her heart crack under the pressure of her mother's confession. The past had clung to her family like a shadow, whispering lies of security while suffocating their growth. If they had held on to this pain for so long, what did that say about their capacity to heal? Did she, too, carry shadows that would haunt her journey toward a new beginning? "Knowing it all doesn't absolve us from its weight," her father added quietly, breaking through Jessica's spiraling thoughts. "But understanding how we got here, acknowledging what was sacrificed, that might just be our path to freedom, Jess." Freedom. The word echoed in her mind, rattling against the cages of fear and uncertainty that had held her captive. What would freedom look like? Would it be confronting the truth that had been fed to her through lies of protection? Or would it be the acceptance of her family's flawed past, bonded by a tragedy that refused to let go? Silence fell again, yet the atmosphere had shifted, the air thick with potential, pregnant with the promise of transformation. She realized that the next step could not be taken lightly. The fear of facing the implications of her family's history was daunting. Would diving deeper into the past risk fracturing their already fragile ties? Or could it strengthen the bonds forged through shared suffering? The reality of her wedding loomed over her like a specter. It was not just a celebration but a pivotal moment that threatened to force the unresolved pain between her parents to the surface. Would she allow their past to dictate her future? Or would she take a stand, using the knowledge of their history to evade the same mistakes. Jessica felt a newfound resolve solidifying in her chest. To move forward, we have to confront this as a family, she stated firmly. We must share this truth and learn from it together. Her words hung in the air, laden with conviction. Although she could not predict where this journey would lead, she sensed the power of unity, the strength in vulnerability. Being open to their pain could create a bridge toward healing. As the gravity of this realization settled over her, she caught the steely glint of determination reflecting in her parents' eyes. Perhaps amid the wreckage of their shared past lay seeds of growth. It was a delicate balancing act, stepping into the intensity of raw emotion while fostering resilience within a broken family. Yet, even as the flicker of hope ignited, a troubling thought pressed at the edges of her consciousness. What if the truths uncovered were darker than she could imagine? What if the remnants of the past threatened to seal her fate rather than liberate her? She wrestled with doubt, envisioning the perilous path ahead. Jessica inhaled deeply, grounding herself. This was her crossroads. She would choose how it would shape her. Armed with knowledge, she would navigate through the unfolding layers of her uncoverings. In that moment, she resolved to claim ownership over her identity, no longer allowing the past to dictate her worth. But as she braced for the emotional storm, a voice inside warned her this was only the beginning. What shadows might she confront next in this unfurling family saga? And how might they reshape her understanding of self? The future stood before her, shrouded in ambiguity yet charged with potential. Confronting her family's history would demand an unwavering courage, but she felt ready. As she prepared to face whatever truths awaited her, a chilling thought struck her. A revelation loomed on the horizon that could alter everything she believed about love, loyalty, and the legacies we inherit. What could this revelation possibly unveil, and would it threaten the wedding she had once envisioned so clearly? Jessica's heart raced as she lay in bed that night, the shadows of her family's past coiling around her like fog. The weight of her mother's confessions had ignited a firestorm of thoughts within her. She had declared a commitment to confront the truth. Yet what lay on the other side of that confrontation? Tossing and turning, she struggled to find rest. Memories from her childhood fluttered through her mind, moments with her parents that glimmered with joy interspersed with glimpses of veiled sorrow. Were those instances genuine, or mere whispers of a reality that had been whitewashed with lies? The very foundations upon which her identity was built seemed to tremble beneath her. As the night deepened, Jessica's thoughts turned from fear to action. She had spent her life striving to meet expectations, often molding her desires to fit the script laid down by her parents. Now she was unraveling the plot, eager to write her own narrative. Confrontation with her past wasn't just about understanding, it was about liberation. It was time to articulate her truths. The following morning she chose to visit the local library. Jessica had often found solace in the scent of old books and the rustle of pages, but today was different. Today she was on a mission, armed with fragile resolve and personal determination. The archives contained records of family histories, and she knew there were untold stories within their dusty tomes that could reveal the secrets still shackling her present. Once within the library's hushed embrace, Jessica navigated rows of shelves, her fingers trailing over worn bindings until she reached the genealogy section. Pulling books from the shelves, she submerged herself in her family tree, hunting for connections and hidden names. Each name she discovered felt like another thread woven into her tapestry of identity. She was digging deep, unearthing the roots of her heritage and, unknowingly, the tangled complexities of her lineage. The hours slipped away, and unease seeped in as she recognized recurring names connected to significant milestones and tragedies. Each page whispers shadows from beyond a fire, a betrayal, a family torn apart. The highlights of her ancestry unveiled a stark contrast to the narrative she thought defined her. Her family was not just a collection of sweet memories but a saga of survival and loss, steeped in complexities she had been shielded from. Suddenly, a name jumped out at her, the same name that had been etched in her mother's painful recollections, linked to a powerful incident. Her heart raced as she followed the threads, an uncanny sense of foreboding rising within her. She discovered a family member who had vanished in the aftermath of the fire, presumed dead but never found. What secrets, what pain had this person carried? Jessica's mind raced with questions that tumbled over one another. This could reshape everything. Was it possible that this missing piece of her history held the key to understanding not just the fire but the emotional blizzards within her family? She was standing at the brink of discovery, and the weight of her hesitations began to shift into something more precarious. With a sudden churn of determination, she decided to find out more. This was her truth to confront, and perhaps uncovering it was necessary for her future, not just her past. She knew little of what danger she might awaken by shining a light into those dark corners, but her stomach knotted with a mix of excitement and dread as she resolved to seek out this lost family member's story. Just as Jessica began to document her findings, her phone buzzed an incoming message from her fiancé, Alex. It was a benign enough question about wedding plans. Yet, in that moment, she realized with a jolt, how much of this new understanding about her family could she reveal to him? What if they had secrets that reached into her desired future, threatening the very foundations of love she'd been so eager to proclaim? The ground beneath her felt precarious as she texted back. There was so much left unsaid, so many secrets yet to be uncovered. Would the journey of unveiling the truth strengthen their bond or cast shadows over their future? As she considered the implications, she felt the tension escalate, each choice spiraling into a deeper labyrinth. And the melt of neon lights and quiet whispers of the library, Jessica braced herself for the storm ahead. This was not merely a quest to understand her family's history. It was a navigation through her own identity, shaped by revelations that still loomed large. The next step was uncertain, but the deeper she delved, the more she sensed a storm brewing on not just her wedding day but the entire life she envisioned. What secrets lie hidden, waiting to be unearthed? With every click of the keyboard, she began to understand this journey of discovery would challenge everything she believed about loyalty and commitment. Would she be strong enough to face what awaited her? Jessica sat at the library table, her fingers poised over the keyboard but her mind adrift. The flood of revelations about her family pressed heavily upon her thoughts, forming a barrier between her and the clarity she sought. She could no longer ignore the plot twists of her own life, each discovery urging her to redefine her existence, to understand what had been shaping her choices all these years. Each name she had unraveled had started a thread, a connection to a greater narrative she was just beginning to comprehend. Yet, as wave after wave of realization crashed over her, she faltered. How could she move forward in her own life with Alex when her past felt like a veil shrouded in twin shadows of guilt and confusion? Her phone buzzed again. Alex's name lit up the screen, simple and warm, beckoning her to abandon the shadows of her lineage and embrace the comparatively mundane aspects of wedding planning. Yet it sparked a deeper conflict within her. She began typing, her fingers hesitating as they danced over the keys, merging the tension of unanswered questions around her past with the desire for a future filled with clarity and faithfulness. Jessica's heart raced as she momentarily abandoned the plan to text him back. Did she dare to lay bare the dark secrets of her family's past? Would Alex stand with her, knowing that the shadows lurking in the corners of her history could stretch into their future? Would bringing him into her maze of uncertainty shatter the bond they had nurtured? The thought gnawed at her, and she pushed herself away from the table in frustration. Her uncertainty about sharing only deepened as she paced between the rows of dusty genealogy books. Jessica felt trapped between her history and future, debating whether to pull Alex into her labyrinth of revelations or protect him from the burden of her family's tragedies. Yet her inner voice was slowly clarifying, rising like a phoenix. She recalled a profound statement her mother had once shared. The truth always finds its way, Jess. Whether we face it or hide, it will shape our lives. The truth. That concept hung in the air as she meandered through the aisles, both haunting and illuminating. Could she confront it head-on? Not just for herself but for the life she wanted with Alex? Determination surged within her, unearthing a latent tenacity she hadn't realized existed. She would prepare herself to articulate her family's history, not just as a collection of sorrows but as testaments of resilience. There would be no sugarcoating. The shadows had a right to be acknowledged so that genuine connections could be formed. Returning to her seat, she refocused on the screen, taking a deep breath as she began crafting a narrative that intertwined her discoveries with her hopes for the future. The idea of sharing her newfound understanding with Alex slowly transformed from daunting to liberating. She imagined their conversations, the strength of honesty, and the intimate bond it could forge between them, but doubt slithered back just as she hit send on her message to him. Would she lose his affection when she unveiled the complicated web of her family's past? The surge of truth she desired could just as easily lead to division. A sudden chill raced through her. It was a calculated risk, and as the silence enveloped her, anxiety twisted in her gut. She needed to know Alex's thoughts, even if they could carry unintended weight, and that moment, a sudden reminder of the missing family member catapulted her forward. If this relative's disappearance was a silent echo of unresolved pain, maybe discovering the truth would resonate beyond her own family, potentially affecting Alex and their future together. As the tension in the library thickened, she realized her path was no longer just about confronting her family's history. It was about defining how that history could enhance or obscure her connections with those she loved. The precarious balance between truth and trust swung delicately before her, each option leading to different futures. As she contemplated the choices before her, the library doors opened, letting a rush of cold air billow in. Her thoughts darted back to her upcoming wedding. Was it truly a celebration, or an act overshadowed by the ghosts of the past? The hovering questions forcefully echoed inside her, teasing clarity, yet inviting confrontation. Suddenly, her phone buzzed again. The swift notification lighting up the darkened space felt simultaneously like a lifeline and a storm. Would it be Alex's response the catalyst for her next decision? Would this moment define not just her relationship with Alex but also her self-empowerment? Jessica held her breath, poised on the brink of her emerging story, filled with anticipation for whatever awaited on the other side of the screen. Would the choices she made today sow the seeds of connection or discord, propelling her closer to an identity forged in truth? The screen flickered as Jessica held the breath that felt heavy in her chest, her heart thumping a discordant rhythm. The anticipation was suffocating, and she leaned closer to her phone, desperate for some semblance of direction. When the notification finally popped up, she double-checked the sender, Alex. A rush of warmth flooded through her, but an undercurrent of dread intertwined, amplifying her doubts. "Hey Jess, just got your message. Can we chat a bit later? I have some thoughts I'd like to share." A mixture of relief and gnawing anxiety gripped her. He hadn't run away, but had he truly understood the weight behind her words? What if his thoughts weren't as warm and supportive as she hoped? Anxiety began to spiral again, and she felt the familiar pit in her stomach tighten. Did he understand just how all-consuming her past felt? Pushing her phone aside, she turned back to the genealogy tomes that lay sprawled across the table. Their musty scent felt oddly comforting. It reminded her that digging into her past was not merely a personal battle, but a journey toward a deeper understanding. A journey that could pull disparate threads of her family history into something coherent, and perhaps enlightening. That as she rifled through the pages, Jessica's mind wandered to the implications of confessing her lineage to Alex. Was she being selfish by wanting to share the burdens of her family? Or was she empowering herself by stripping away the layers that had hidden her from her own truth? The questions spiraled, twisting into a chaotic whirlwind of self-examination and fear. Suddenly, a memory surfaced, the last family gathering that had fizzled into silence when the topic of her missing relative came up. All the unspoken words and quivering glances replayed painfully in her mind. It marked the crack in her family's veneer, the parting of ways between the past they wanted to gloss over and the truth that loomed heavy over their heads. Could she bear the weight of similar silence in her relationship with Alex? The realization struck her. Whether she communicated her history through stilted sentences or heartfelt revelations, the act itself demanded courage. Jessica gripped the edge of the table, igniting a resolve inside of her. Fear of losing what she had with Alex couldn't outweigh her desire for transparency, nor could it overshadow her journey toward healing. Therefore, planning her approach became pivotal. She brainstormed ways to introduce the topic carefully, isolating the most alarming details while propelling forward her personal narrative of resilience. She would approach it not just as a confessional but as a conversation about identity. This was not merely about her past, it was about how she had arrived in the present, eager to forge a future unencumbered by specters of guilt. She mentally rehearsed her words. A thought struck her. Unearthing hidden talents could empower her. When had she ever allowed herself to be vulnerable with anyone but herself? Could this honesty showcase a strength she had buried alongside her truths? That thought urged her to see vulnerability not as a weakness but as an opportunity to connect more deeply. In moments of clarity, Jessica realized that tackling the uncertainty was part of a broader endeavor to embrace herself fully, not just the fragments she deemed presentable. The cold air from earlier seemed to dissipate, replaced by the warm glow of determination building within her. She wasn't merely a product of her past. She was the architect of her future. The impending conversation with Alex became not just a moment of sharing, but an initiation into a deeper partnership. She grabbed her phone and began typing again, her fingers moving nimbly this time, capturing the sentiments swirling inside her: a proposal for a meeting, a chance to lay out her thoughts, and ultimately to reveal the beauty nestled within her traumas. Before she hit send, a stray thought disrupted her focus. What if Alex's response would reveal unspoken truths about him too? Would they emerge from this exchange transformed? Or would their revelations fracture the union they had built? The prospect of his unearthed truths shook her. Even as the path unfolded beneath her, the potential ramifications loomed larger than ever, disagreeable yet inescapable. A sudden gust rattled the library window, a physical reminder that outside lives thrived while she remained entrenched in her own thoughts. Uncertainty pulsed in her veins, but so did belief in the power of honest connection. Jessica exhaled sharply, fortified by an awareness that ignorance would never render her free. She steadied herself, ready to confront whatever the discussion with Alex might bring. With every fiber of her being prepared for the moment, she pressed send. Would this be the unraveling or the weaving together of two intersecting lives? The next step loomed ominously before her, equal parts thrilling and terrifying. Jessica felt a shaky flutter in her stomach as she awaited Alex's response. The silence buzzed in her ears, a haunting reminder of how fragile their moment of connection felt, like standing on the edge of a precipice, one misstep away from a fall. Each passing second stretched into an eternity, amplifying her doubts about the weight of her disclosures. There had been an unspoken bond forming, but what if sharing her truth shattered it? The afternoon light filtering through the library's windows deepened her thoughts. The silence offered its own kind of pressure, insisting she confront the numerous threads rapidly unraveling in her mind. It wasn't just Alex she questioned anymore. It was her worthiness of connection. Was she actually strong enough to share the full extent of her past? What would happen if Alex recoiled from the intensity of her revelations? The variability of human emotion stared her down, a daunting challenge layered with fear, loss, and a hint of despair. Suddenly, she was struck by a critical insight. Vulnerability could be her most formidable strength. These feelings of fear were not flaws but rather assets that, once acknowledged, could forge deeper connections. The curiosity to dig beyond surface-level interactions grew in her. Discovering hidden connections about herself and others began to feel like a vital endeavor. The very idea propelled her forward, lending a sense of urgency to the situation. Sitting up straighter, Jessica resolved to sift through her expectations of the conversation, determined to leave her fears behind. She reached for one of the genealogy tomes, flipping to a page filled with detailed entries of long-forgotten ancestors, and began to read. Each name and story felt like a thread, weaving a more intricate tapestry than she'd experienced alone. These weren't just her burdens. They were collective narratives that shaped her identity. Enlightenment flared as she mentally documented her family's diverse legacies. Triumphs, grief, and resilience, woven together in multifaceted patterns. She realized now they were a living testament to the idea that every heartache had the potential to become a story of growth. The tapping of her phone stirred her from reverie. Alex's message flooded her with a mix of excitement and anxiety. "Hey Jess. How about 4 p.m. today? We can meet at our usual coffee spot. Looking forward to this chat." The familiar warmth of his words was a balm to her nerves, yet it also intensified the gravity of her decision. 4 p.m. loomed like a storm cloud on the horizon, and she felt the anxiety tighten around her. The thought of laying her burdened heart bare sent waves of doubt through her. Yet, as the clock flicked closer to that hour, excitement pushed her insecurities aside. She ventured into the mundane changing clothes, fixing her hair while preparing her mind for the depths they'd explore. What if Alex was braver than she'd imagined? What if he too had stories he held tightly, stories that would lead them toward shared understanding? The dual concept of healing and growth began to swirl within her, igniting a resolve so powerful that she wanted to shout it into the void. Arriving at the coffee shop, Her breath caught momentarily as she spotted Alex already seated. Their eyes met, and a flicker of recognition passed between them. It felt significant. There was something alive in the air that called for acknowledgement. A newfound determination washed over her. This was not merely about her history or family secrets, but about forging bonds that would shape the future. With every step toward their table, she steeled herself to open the door to a deeper relationship, one built on transparency and mutual exploration. But as she approached the table, a jarring image flickered in her mind, an echo of the conversations she'd had with family members, their dismissive responses looming like shadows. The fear of repeating that cycle threatened to unravel her confidence. However, she pressed on, feeling empowered by the knowledge that this interaction could bring growth for them both. Would Alex meet her vulnerability with his own? Could they create a space of mutual understanding? With her heart pounding, Jessica took a deep breath. The moment had arrived, and whatever would come next felt indescribably vital. The coffee shop was bustling, but in the midst of the noise, Jessica felt a cocoon of silence forming around her and Alex. As she settled into her seat across from him, she noticed the familiar light in his eyes, a mixture of curiosity and affection. The stakes felt high, and she internally braced herself, ready to shatter the barriers that had long kept her concealed. "Hey," Alex said warmly, his smile chasing away the edges of her unease. "Hey," she reciprocated, though her heart pounded faster than she had anticipated. They exchanged small talk about their day, but Jessica could hardly focus. Each beat intensified her resolve. She needed to lift the veil on her past, not just for her sake but for the future she desired with him. She felt a warmth spread through her as she gathered her thoughts, that same fire she had ignited the day before. "Alex," she said at last, her voice steadier than she felt, "I need to share something important with you." The gravity of her words settled in, and she watched the transition in his expression from casual interest to full attention. "I've been uncovering a lot about my family, and it's making me see things differently. I think we need to talk about it." She paused as Alex's brow furrowed slightly, but he nodded, signaling that he was all ears. "I found out that there are secrets which have shaped my family's history, and honestly, it's been a roller coaster of emotions. It's not just about me. It's about understanding where I come from." She pressed on, channeling everything she had felt, the confusion, fear, the sparks of courage that dared her to lay bare her truth. "What kind of secrets?" he asked gently, his voice compassionate but probing. Jessica took a deep breath, the weight of centuries pressing against her chest. "There was a tragedy of fire that changed everything for us. It's led to years of silence, of not talking about certain family members, and not facing the pain. But now I realize that silence doesn't protect us. It suffocates us. I don't want that happening to us." She watched as Alex's expression turned serious, absorbing every word. The moment stretched, rich with unspoken bonds of trust, vulnerability, and anticipation. Alex began slowly, "This is big. But I'm here for you. You're not carrying this alone. I understand that facing the past can be daunting. But if we don't acknowledge it, how can we build a future together?" His understanding washed over her like a balm. They were in this together. Sharing her fears, and the weight of her lineage seemed to lay the foundation for something deeper between them. "Exactly," she affirmed, her heart swelling. "I need us to face everything, my past, my family, and also to know about your history. I hope this brings us closer, not divides us." Alex opened up then, recounting his own family struggles, the pressure, expectations, and how his parents' unresolved issues had plagued his upbringing. It resonated powerfully with Jessica. In sharing their truths, they were constructing a bridge of understanding, dismantling fears and uncertainty as they shared their histories. A sense of freedom swept through Jessica. It was as if she had taken a deep breath after holding her emotions hostage. Their conversation ebbed and flowed, filled with laughter and tears, vulnerability transforming into strength. By the end of their talk, they were no longer merely two individuals bound by affection. They were allies navigating the complexities of their pasts together. Their connection deepened into a partnership fortified by mutual support. When the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting golden rays through the coffee shop window, Jessica realized that she had moved from fear to empowerment. She had faced her shadows, shed light on her family's history, and in turn illuminated a pathway toward an authentic collaboration with Alex. "I feel lighter," she said, her voice imbued with a newfound confidence. "This is just the beginning, and I'm ready to embrace whatever comes next together." Alex smiled, a flicker of pride gleaming in his eyes, and Jessica knew she had taken a monumental step in overcoming a personal hurdle that had long overshadowed her identity. In that moment she felt whole, as if she had successfully woven together the fabric of her lineage with threads of truth and understanding. The future was now a tapestry of possibilities, rich with clarity, love, and an unbreakable bond. As they stood to leave, Jessica knew this was not merely about confronting her past. It was about embracing her entire self, her entire story, and stepping into her future with confidence. Now is the moment for you to follow suit. You need to subscribe now to join the journey of personal transformation that awaits with every new story. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spread the message of hope and healing. Comment below to share your reactions or theories. We can't wait to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who could benefit from witnessing this powerful conclusion. Your support is crucial to bringing personal overcoming stories to life.